June 12th, 2025, a date that would soon be etched into the collective memory of a nation and the world. What began as an ordinary Thursday would end in tragedy, forever altering the lives of hundreds of families. Air India Flight 171 lifts off from Ahmedabad, bound for London. The early morning sun glints off the fuselage as the Dreamliner climbs into the sky, carrying hopes, dreams, and the promise of reunions and new beginnings. 261 people on board, families, students, business travelers. Some are heading home, others off to new adventures. Laughter, nervous excitement, and the hum of anticipation fill the cabin. Within seconds, disaster strikes. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner, a marvel of modern engineering, suddenly loses all power. In a terrifying instant, the aircraft becomes a silent glider, plunging uncontrollably toward the city below. It crashes into a residential building and a student hostel, shattering the morning calm. The resulting fireball consumes the aircraft and buildings, sending a plume of smoke into the sky. Flames rage as emergency crews rush to the scene, but the devastation is total. There are no survivors, except one. From the twisted wreckage, Vishwash Kumar Ramesh, seated in 11A, emerges with only minor scratches. Dazed and disoriented, he stumbles into the arms of first responders, his clothes singed but his life miraculously spared. His survival is a baffling anomaly. Investigators, doctors, and even seasoned rescue workers are left speechless. How could anyone walk away from such utter destruction? How did one man walk away from a crash that obliterated everything else? Was it luck, fate, or something science cannot yet explain? The world is desperate for answers. His escape is a solitary beacon of hope amid devastation. For a grieving city, his story is a fragile thread of light in a tapestry of darkness. The aftermath is chaos. Rescue workers comb through debris, families grieve, and the world demands answers. Among the dead, 169 Indians, 53 British nationals, 7 Portuguese, 1 Canadian. The loss is felt across continents, uniting strangers in shared sorrow, each with a story now lost, dreams unfulfilled, journeys cut short, and voices silenced in an instant. The pain is immeasurable. The crash shatters trust in air travel, sparking a massive investigation. Questions swirl about safety, maintenance, and accountability. The world watches, anxious and afraid. All eyes turn to Indian authorities and Boeing. The pressure mounts as officials promise a thorough inquiry, vowing to leave no stone unturned. The world wants the truth. Sympathy is not enough. Only facts, accountability, and change can begin to heal the wounds. For the families, only answers matter now. Their grief is compounded by uncertainty, and their demand for justice grows louder with each passing day. This was not just a tragedy, it was a crisis of confidence in aviation. Passengers everywhere questioned their safety, and airlines scrambled to reassure a shaken public. The investigation must deliver total transparency. Every detail, every decision, every error must be brought to light. Anything less would betray those who perished. The world waits, hoping that from this tragedy, lessons will be learned, and that such a disaster will never happen again. A month after the crash, Indian authorities stepped forward to release their preliminary report. This document, intended to clarify the sequence of events and provide answers to a nation in mourning, instead stirs up even more questions. The world watches, hoping for closure, but what they receive is a puzzle with missing pieces. Instead of clarity, the report only deepens the mystery, leaving experts and the public alike searching for explanations that make sense. According to investigators, the crash was triggered when both engine fuel switches were moved from run to cut off just seconds after takeoff. This action abruptly starved the engines of fuel, causing them to fail at the worst possible moment. These switches are not easily moved by accident. They are protected by covers and require a deliberate two-step action to operate, an intentional move, not a casual slip of the hand. The implication is stark. Either a grave pilot error occurred or something more sinister, a sabotage, was at play. The report leans towards human error, but the possibility of foul play lingers in the air. The black box recordings seem to support this theory. In the cockpit's final moments, one pilot is heard asking why the switches were moved, while the other denies ever touching them. The exchange is brief, tense, and ultimately inconclusive. Yet the report omits crucial context. Details about cockpit conditions, crew workload, and possible technical malfunctions are missing. This absence leaves a void. one quickly filled by speculation and suspicion. The official narrative is simple: a fatal mistake by the crew, absolving Boeing and the airline and neatly wrapping up the story for the public. But for aviation experts and grieving families, this explanation feels rushed and incomplete. It's too neat, too quick, and leaves them with more pain than answers. Many insist that the real investigation is only just beginning. They demand a deeper look, a more thorough search for the truth behind the tragedy. The official story may be out, but the truth remains elusive, hidden beneath layers of unanswered questions and incomplete evidence. Around the world, people demand more than a convenient answer. They want transparency, accountability, and above all, the real story behind the switches that changed everything. Experts dissect the official timeline and find glaring inconsistencies. The report claims both fuel switches were cut off 4 seconds after takeoff, but then there's a 10-second gap before any corrective action. Why the delay? In a crisis, every second counts. It took 1 second to doom the flight, but 4 seconds to attempt recovery. The logic doesn't add up. Captain Kishore Chinta, a former investigator, calls out the flawed sequence. The missing 10 seconds become the investigation's black hole. Did the pilots freeze, or was something else at play? The cockpit voice recorder transcript offers no answers. The silence from investigators only fuels suspicion. The timeline's gaps suggest either incompetence or a cover-up. The official narrative wastes no time in pointing fingers at the pilots, with Captain Sumit Sabharwal quickly singled out as the main culprit. The media and authorities seem eager to find a simple explanation, and the easiest target is often the person at the controls. Captain Sabharwal was no ordinary pilot. With over 8,000 hours in the air, he was known for his professionalism, calm under pressure, and a reputation for putting safety above all else. Colleagues describe him as meticulous, always double-checking procedures and never cutting corners. Despite this, the official report subtly suggests he was battling personal demons, hinting at emotional instability or distraction. These insinuations, though never directly stated, cast a shadow over his legacy and raised doubts in the public mind. Those who knew him best, friends, family and fellow crew, firmly reject this narrative. They insist that Captain Sabharwal was deeply committed to his passengers' safety and would never, under any circumstances, put lives at risk. The alternative explanation is a catastrophic mistake in the cockpit, a momentary lapse with devastating consequences. But is that really plausible? Moving the fuel switches is not something that happens by accident. It requires a conscious, deliberate action, one that every pilot is trained to avoid unless absolutely necessary. For both pilots, highly trained and experienced, to overlook such a critical error for a full 10 seconds goes against everything they've learned. It defies logic, training, and the rigorous safety culture of commercial aviation. Yet, the investigation seems fixated on the pilot's personal life, while sidestepping technical questions about the aircraft, maintenance, or possible system failures. This approach feels less like a search for truth and more like a search for someone to blame. The dead cannot defend themselves, and so the story becomes one-sided, shaped by those with the loudest voices and the most to lose. The truth, however, may be far more complicated than a simple case of pilot error. There are unanswered questions and overlooked evidence that deserve attention. By placing the blame squarely on the crew, the investigation sidesteps deeper, more uncomfortable questions about systemic issues, regulatory oversight, or possible flaws in the aircraft itself. Captain Sabharwal and all those who lost their lives deserve a thorough and unbiased inquiry, one that seeks the truth, not just a convenient verdict. Independent experts urge a closer look at the aircraft itself. The Dreamliner's fly-by-wire systems mean computers mediate every command. Could a software glitch or electrical fault have triggered the fuel cutoff, not human hands? The pilot's confusion on the voice recorder could be genuine, facing a system gone rogue. The 10-second gap might reflect their struggle with malfunctioning controls, not inaction. Boeing's recent history of technical failures makes this theory plausible. Before blaming the crew, every technical possibility must be exhausted. The safety of future flights depends on it. Boeing's response: silence and carefully crafted statements. They offer condolences and pledge support, but dodge substantive questions about the Dreamliner's safety. The stakes are enormous. A technical fault could ground the global fleet and cost billions. It's easier to let the pilot error narrative dominate. This lack of transparency insults the victims and their families. Boeing's history, especially with the 737 MAX, shows a pattern of withholding information. The company's silence puts pressure on investigators to remain truly independent. The world needs a transparent, fearless inquiry. Passengers deserve reassurance, not corporate stonewalling. Right now, Boeing's silence offers none. As official channels go quiet, whistleblowers and victims' families rise up. They refuse to accept a convenient explanation for the deaths of 260 people. Ed Pearson, a former Boeing manager, leads calls for a full systems investigation, warning against scapegoating pilots. Families unite, demanding a transparent inquiry that considers all possible causes. Their grief fuels a relentless pursuit of justice. Pilots and aviation experts join the call for transparency, knowing the stakes for global aviation. This coalition, whistleblowers, families, experts, stands as a bulwark against a cover-up. They fight not just for the victims, but for everyone who flies. Their voices cannot be ignored. The truth must come out. The world is watching. The pieces form a troubling picture. An official report with timeline gaps, pilots blamed, and a silent manufacturer with much to lose. This isn't just a flawed investigation, it looks like a conspiracy of convenience. Blaming the pilot is the path of least resistance, quick, tidy, and protects powerful interests. The alternative, a fatal flaw in the Dreamliner, would trigger a global crisis. Institutions may find it easier to embrace the pilot error theory despite evidence to the contrary. The unexplained 10-second gap and cockpit confusion are swept aside. That's why independent journalists, whistleblowers, and families are vital. They challenge the narrative, demanding answers to the hard questions. Why the rushed report? Why ignore technical possibilities? The silence suggests something is being hidden. The truth, however costly, must be pursued. The story of Flight 171 is about truth, accountability, and justice. For the victims and the lone survivor, only the full truth will suffice. The preliminary report is not the end. It must spark a real independent investigation. 3 urgent steps. First, an international team must review all evidence, including unedited cockpit recordings. Second, Boeing must end its silence and fully cooperate, prioritizing safety over profit. Third, we must remember the human cost. 260 lives lost, families shattered. Justice means holding all responsible parties to account. Lessons must be learned to prevent future tragedies. The fight for truth is a fight for everyone who flies. We will not stop until we have it.